So today we're shooting the interview with a very interesting guy um, who was doing lots of permaculture stuff and self-sustainable stuff. So yeah, hello. I wanted to know your story, like from scratch. Like how did you change from 9 to 5 job to some other kind of living?
Uh-huh. So I guess I never really started in a 9 to 5 job. I avoided it at all costs, really. I left university in 2010 with a master's in industrial design, and I guess felt a little bit lost, not really wanting to go into a working environment where my boss would tell me to use the cheapest plastics and don't worry about the end of the life cycle of the product, it's not important, just do what you need to do to make some money. I wasn't really interested in that, so I went traveling around South America, mainly just to take a breather after spending all of my life in the education system. And I didn't really have any money, so I tried to find some places to volunteer, planned to work on farms or in children's homes or whatever, just find some way to live a cheap lifestyle. And I found a permaculture farm in the mountains of Ecuador that was called Rhiannon, the Rhiannon community. And I planned to go there for 2 weeks and ended up staying there for 9 months. That was in the end of 2010, 2011. And I guess I just found what I was looking for, really. I found somewhere where I could use my skills as a designer to create a functioning system. I found something that appealed more to the sustainability side of design, which was always what interested me the most. I found beautiful people and a very calm environment with healthy food and beautiful views and a very cheap lifestyle. So that was kind of my introduction into permaculture. And I spent my first few weeks there digging swales. Swales are trenches that you dig along the contour of a hill to help hold water. And it was great, I was just digging, not really worrying about anything, totally fine. And then after a few months there, I had been living in dormitories there and living in a teepee there, and they asked me if I wanted to build my own teepee so that I could have my own private space on the farm. And I'd heard about earthbag building, so I wasn't really that interested in sleeping in a canvas tent teepee. I decided to build a small underground earthbag house. So the next 4 months at the farm, me and 2 other volunteers built a tiny little earthbag house. And we didn't really know what we were doing. We learned everything on YouTube and on Google, and we drew a basic floor plan and started building the walls. And then when the walls got up to roof height, we looked at how strong the roof needed to be, working out how we decided to put a living roof on, so working out basic calculations of how heavy the roof was going to be, and completely over-engineered everything with far too many beams and just made it super strong. But
Well, it's impressive that you had no skill before that.
I mean, I had a design education, so I think I didn't have any building skills and no experience other than wood shop at school.
Okay.
And whatever I'd done with a hammer in my dad's workshop, but no real building experience. I guess, like I say, I brought to it my design experience of the design process of research,
Mm-hmm.
lots and lots of ideas before you even start thinking about developing one. It's like just really get as many ideas down on paper as possible. Well, I didn't really come into it when we were building the tiny house. It was it was let's get going, let's put a floor plan down, and then as we were going, I had some idea of what I wanted it to look like. But yeah, I mean, it cost about $600 for materials, and it was a great little project to keep me occupied for 6 months, and yeah, and now I have a tiny little holiday home in the mountains of Ecuador on the property of my best friends. So yeah, that was a nice introduction to permaculture, and then I left South America to go back to England. I ran out of money, so I went back to England to get a job, a standard 9-to-5 office job, which, you know, I was sat in front of a car windscreen in the morning for an hour and a half, and then I was sat in front of a computer screen for 9 hours, generally searching through Reddit, and looking outside of the big window next to me at the world outside, thinking I just want to be back there. And then about a year into that working life, I got an email from the same community in Ecuador saying they wanted to build another earth bag building, and they were emailing all the previous volunteers that had been there saying, you know, we're looking for people that we know we get along with and that have some history here, and would you like to come back and help?
Okay.
And I said, yeah, sure, you know. I'd saved up a little bit of money, I was ready to get going again. I had itchy feet, so I headed back to Rhiannon. That was the end of 2012. Yeah, something like that. So headed back to Rhiannon there were maybe 4 of us that started this project. The idea there was to build a space for teaching courses. They're trying to create a permaculture center there in the mountains. It's run by 2 English girls, a lesbian couple, and one of them is massively into yoga and massage and Reiki. The other one's massively into permaculture and gardening, so they're bringing that together to create a teaching center for all things spiritual and all things permaculture, I guess. So we have been running more and more courses over the past few years there, but every time a course comes through, there's maybe like 30 or 40 people that just completely take over the farm. And it is a real strain on all our resources there, so we decided to build a bigger space so that they could have a teaching center, and the volunteers, there's usually 15 or 20 volunteers at all times, so they could continue living in the communal space. And yeah, 5 of us turned up to start this mammoth project, not really knowing what we were getting ourselves in for. And I was the only one that turned up with any design experience, any earth bagging experience, any real idea of how we were going to do it, so it fell on my shoulders to design it, which was pretty much what I wanted, and I was perfectly happy in that role. So yeah, we set about building a earth bag hall, and then I spent the last 2 years doing that, really.
Okay. That's it?
I mean, yeah, I could go into lots of detail about the hall. What do you want to hear?
No, I just want to ask you the next question. So, what is your understanding of permaculture?
So, for me, permaculture is a design science. Well, that's what it is. It's a way to regrow forests, grow food in that environment, give people fulfilling work. It's a way to take back the damage that we've done to the earth.
So, how should it? Is it intention? Does it have an intention to change the world? Actually.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
So how exactly?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems I see with the world is the destruction of topsoil.
Mm-hmm.
It's leading to desertification all around the world. And we've already destroyed a lot of it. I think some places in Europe the topsoil was 10 meters thick and we're now down to 80 centimeters, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
This is all, that's what forests do. They create topsoil, they drop their leaves and they build up layers and layers and layers of humus. So by restoring those environments and not in some sort of like replicatable sort of plant a line of trees next to each other and create a monocrop of trees and expecting to do it in some simple, well-organized way, but in a more sort of chaotic and organic and natural, diverse system where you plant lots of things together and they all look after each other in a way that man can only hope to one day fathom. And create a really nice, rich system for everybody to live a nice, healthy lifestyle in.
Okay, and how does this permaculture connect with self-sustainable living?
So I think I want to get out of it food, really. I found that when I was living in the office lifestyle, I was spending most of my money on energy, accommodation, and food. Like 3 very basic human rights that we've had like throughout our species that we seem to have to work 9 hours a day just to pay for nowadays. So I think if I can satisfy those 3 basic needs in a system like permaculture, where I would buy a small plot of land and plant a bunch of trees and some vegetable gardens and maybe a greenhouse, and have a system that can give me back, even if it's only 50% of my food needs. It's a big step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
If I can link that with some sort of energy system whereby I can have, my laptop running and an internet connection, then that's even better. And if I can create a nice cheap house using ecological materials that could essentially be knocked down and go back to the land, then that would be a dream that's realizable. It's not something that's out of reach. It's a very tangible dream that's right in front of me. It's something that I could do in a year.
Okay. So how about self-sustainable houses?
Well, the house that I was living in was tiny. It was that way because I didn't want it to take me years and years to build. It took us a few months with 3 people working 5 hours a day, but I'd go a little bit bigger than that now. With the idea of starting a family or something, that would have to be a little bit bigger, but I think something that maybe had a greenhouse attached to capture the heat and light of the sun, somewhere that I could grow food and purify the air and recycle the water that's leaving the house. Something maybe next to a stream with a water turbine, or somewhere on a hill with a wind turbine, or somewhere in a sunny climate with solar panels so that I can generate a little bit of electricity without needing to put a big cable in the ground and pay for fossil fuels to be burnt. That's my idea of stuff, is sustainable housing. That's a fairly standard vision, I guess. Using local materials. I personally like earthbag building because it's super strong for one, but it's using the earth that's right on the building site. You're not really having to bring anything in except some bag material and some barbed wire to hold it together.
Okay, could you please tell a little bit more about the materials and about your hands-on experience building such house?
Okay. So the basic materials are polypropylene plastic sack, which comes on a roll. It's not been stitched into separate sacks.
Sorry, so it contains plastic, right?
Yeah.
Steel.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's the current use, but I mean you could do it with natural jute bags or burlap sacks or whatever you wanted to use really if you wanted to go down the natural route. I think I'm not personally against the use of small amounts of plastic or small amounts of modern materials in ecological building if it's going to make things more practical for people. I mean, yeah, I would really like to go away from that eventually, but at the moment that's the way that everybody's doing it, and I want to kind of stay in the majority whilst it's still such a new technique.
So it's not possible to replace plastic right now?
Yeah, I think it is. It's mainly that it's a more expensive option is to use the natural sacks. I think that's the main reason why people don't. I could be wrong on that.
Okay.
So it's plastic sacks that you buy on a roll, so the roll might be, I don't know, 1,000 meters long or something. And you chop it up into whatever length you need, depending on the wall section that you're using. So if you've got a section of wall that's 10 meters long, you chop a 10-meter bag, and then you roll it up onto a bucket with a hole in the bottom. So you just get a basic 5-gallon bucket, cut a hole in the bottom, and roll it up like you would roll up your sleeve on your arm. And then you throw in an adobe mix, which is ideally 70% sand and 30% clay, somewhere around that ratio. But I mean, there's people been doing it with just gravel in there. There's still sandbags, like sandbag walls that are still standing from the war. So I mean, you can get away with using any material, but a good adobe mix is those ratios. You fill the bag, lay them on top of each other with 2 strands of barbed wire in between. That acts as almost like Velcro to hold the bags together, stop the bags sliding on each other, the layers, and also provides a lot of tensile strength in the wall. Really stops anything from moving. Like if it's going to fall, then that barbed wire is going to really just tighten and tense in the wall and stop anything from falling. And then you tamp it, which using a stick with a load of concrete on the end or a metal plate on the end. You really pound it down to make it as compact as possible. And then you just keep building layer upon layer. It's better to go with curved walls rather than straight walls. They're much stronger. It's better to put buttresses every 4 or 5 meters to strengthen any walls that have windows too close.
So you said even spiral construction is...
Yeah, that's the design we went with. The hole in Ecuador was, they said they wanted a big spiral, so I basically drew a big spiral and put a circle inside it. That was the floor plan.
Mm-hmm.
We actually arrived in the September, and on I think like the 10th of September we got the diggers in to dig the foundations, and that week we were already earth bagging, so the floor plan was very quickly decided upon, and we basically got started. And whilst the guys were out there earth bagging, I was thinking about windows and doors and things like that, so that when we got up to that height.
By the way, how do you produce glass? Or you just buy glass?
Yeah, I think we're just planning on buying glass for the windows. The project isn't finished yet. I basically finished the structure, built the walls, and put the roof on. And
what's the material of roof?
Ferro cement we went with in the end. We were planning on using latex concrete, which is about a 1 centimeter layer of concrete with fiberglass reinforcement to hold it all together. And that's, I mean, there's videos on YouTube of shake table tests, like simulating an earthquake, and the stuff literally wobbles like jelly. It's quite amazing to see, but we ended up going with ferro cement, mainly because you can't really find a good latex supplier in South America. we were looking for a latex that was acrylic based, and it was going to cost about $3,000 in latex, which we decided to spend on chicken wire instead, and go with ferro cement, which is 2 layers of chicken wire and about 2 centimeters of cement. And going with that thickness, it's pretty lightweight compared to most concrete roofs, so a lot less material than normal concrete roofs, and it's still pretty flexible. We basically put bamboo beams on top of the walls. On top of that we put split bamboo, which is a piece of bamboo which has been opened out into basically a plank. And there we had a very strong but still flexible substructure. And then on top of that we put recycled earth bag material. We had quite a lot left over and it was sun damaged, so we opened that out and put that on top of the bamboo. And then we put on shade cloth to act as the first layer of reinforcement. It was a nylon mesh that was super strong, so we put that down first so that the concrete would kind of seep through the gaps in the shade cloth and create quite a strong reinforcement in the bottom, millimeter of concrete. We then put on chicken wire and then about 2 to 3 centimeters of cement, and some of the spans that we were looking at were 4 to 5 meters, and we had maybe 10 people jumping up and down on the roof, and we were rolling along wheelbarrows of cement, and it was perfectly strong enough to hold it. There's no cracks or anything. I mean, you can watch the whole thing wobbling up and down. It's you wouldn't think it possible with cement.
Yeah, it's expected in such type of houses, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the material in between the rooms?
Earth bags.
The same.
To separate the rooms, yeah, earth bags. Whether I'd do the same again, I don't know. I mean, I think only experience can teach you those lessons, that actually maybe you don't need to partition a room with such a labour-intensive building technique, but we've actually ended up with a super strong.
What about the floor material?
The floors aren't in yet, but in the central hall they're going to use pressed bamboo, which is using bamboo fibres and pressing it together under really high pressure to create basically a hardwood out of bamboo. So it's pretty eco. And then for the rest of the floors they're using stabilised earth, using hydrated lime as a stabiliser. It's about 10% lime in the mix. And that's what we were using for the plaster on the walls as well. We were using the earth from on site and solidifying it with lime and plastering it on the walls.
You said lime the fruit, right?
No, lime the limestone. Similar process to creating concrete, cement, sorry. But at a much lower temperature. It creates, you might have seen whitewash on old buildings. We have it a lot across Spain and France. They whitewash the building with the lime.
I heard eggs are put in the concrete.
Eggs?
Eggs, right?
I don't know.
To make it super strong.
I don't know, I've never heard of that before.
Okay. So what about the kitchen and bathroom pipes and all this stuff?
We didn't worry about the kitchen and bathroom. With it being a community, this farm, they already have a shower and bathroom block.
So the idea is different.
Facilities. So it was literally just a teaching space.
Okay, so the idea of such commune is that they will share the shower and kitchen and
separate out the facilities, and if one thing needs upgrading, then you can look at it as a separate thing.
Okay. I wanted to also to understand how people are just think there about what are their intention. Why are they doing all that?
So everybody that comes through the farm is on the travelling route down through South America. So most people are there to experience something that isn't just hostels or couch surfing, which is most people's usual bed for the night. It gives people an opportunity to work for a very cheap stay. So we were paying $40 a month for three meals a day and a bed for the night, which is like a massive saving for somebody that's travelling around South America. So I'd say a lot of people are there primarily to like take a break from the really quick fire hostile lifestyle, which is like, hi, what's your name? Where are you from? Nice to meet you. Okay, cool, ciao. Hi, what's your name? Where are you from? Yeah, this was somewhere where people would stay for a month and really get to know each other and work together and cook together and just live together. And yeah, it was
Yeah,
a great place to start.
I mean, their intention is to just build the houses and to plant some tree, or just.
That was the vision 8 years ago when it started. Was that they wanted to, basically create an ecological lifestyle for themselves.
But is it a village? Is it a city already, or is it
No,
separated?
It's basically on a tiny piece of land, right on the end of a hill in the mountains of Ecuador, and they were just buying themselves a nice piece of land to start gardening and planting trees, and I think things grew from there really. They'd never really envisaged starting a community of 20 to 25 people. They were just accepting couch surfers, and more people came. More and more people seemed to like it, and more people seem to keep coming, and they're trying to like catch up with the growth of this thing that they've started, I guess.
So it's turning into a movement.
Yeah, I think permaculture is already a movement. I think that's definitely one of the things that attracts people there, is that there's already a global permaculture movement. There's initiatives in every city.
Yeah, but permaculture is okay when you have, let's say, a house and you just want to produce healthy food for you. But the self-sustainable houses is totally different idea and intention, right?
No, I think they're deeply intertwined. I think permaculture's like a game changer in many aspects of life, not just in terms of sustainable housing, but in terms of sustainable agriculture and in terms of regrowing forests and like reversing climate change and actually intentionally looking at what humans are doing on this planet and trying to do it, like trying to actually do something different, not just talk about it, but actually do something that's game changing.
Okay, and tell me about your like ideas or projects in web development or IT sphere.
Well, I guess with a design background, I've always kind of dabbled in IT. I'm a CAD designer by profession. That's kind of what I'd like to start making some money doing.
No, I'm telling about the platforms.
Okay, so
without money.
Yeah, I don't really have any experience with this. I don't really have any skills in this, but I think it'd be really nice to create some sort of open source platform whereby people could post their piece of land online or their flat online or whatever space they own online, and it could be a common space for people to come and share ideas, a forum for people to come and communally design spaces. Kind of, we were talking about it earlier, a sort of philanthropic idea really. It's not really something with any return for anybody. It's more as like a crowdfunding platform almost, where people are going there because they've got a bit of spare cash and they want to donate it to something good. Well, it's somewhere for people to say, I'm trying to start something good, help me out. Somewhere where designers can come and help those people, tell them, what sort of trees are local to that area that they can plant, what sort of systems might be good, what angle they need to put the solar panels on. I don't know. Like, I guess that would be what I'd want to see come from the IT world.
So this online education part will be a part of this website, right?
Yeah, I mean, naturally, like if people are congregating there to design a system, then and it's almost a running blog of how that system develops, then people are going to take a lot of education from that, I think. And creating online courses and things is maybe something separate to that idea. I don't know how it would be related. Maybe it would just be a different section of the website where people could post tutorials. I think there's plenty of things existing in that sphere though, almost like the Instructables type of thing where people go online and say, hey guys, look what I've done. If you'd like to do it, here's a list of exactly what you need and exactly steps of how to do it, and I'm going to give you this for free, take it.
And you can ask me questions also, right? Yeah, that's cool. So okay, so what are your plans for the future?
Well, we're in San Francisco at the moment. We're just taking a short break here before returning back to England. I'm going to go back down and see my family, and then after the new year we're going to move to Europe, to Estonia, where my girlfriend's from. Settle down there for maybe a year and try to find some way to make some small income remotely. I think if I can just make just a very basic trickle income to keep me going when I'm living at communities like this or moving around communities like that, then yeah, that'd be a good starting point for getting away from this 9 to 5 lifestyle, I guess.
Well, I mean, after this year, what are you planning to do?
Well, my ultimate dream is to start a small property where I can actually practice this stuff for myself, really. I want to bring kids into this world, and I don't want to bring kids into an unsustainable lifestyle. So I think before that happens, I really need to grow some food and make sure I've got my water sources all sorted out, and hopefully be able to provide a bit of energy and shelter over their heads. And I don't really want to do that whilst being in debt or a mortgage.
Yeah, I understand. So you're thinking about buying a land and build a house yourself and permaculture, and after that you're ready for kids.
Well, yeah, I guess so. And then, I mean, ultimately, once I've practiced this enough, I mean, I'm really just a student of this at the moment. But once I'm more experienced, I'd like to start helping other people to do it as well. So maybe that's another income stream one day, is to be a consultant or a professor or something like that. I mean, like I say, this is a rapidly growing movement, in my opinion. A very narrow view of the mountains of Ecuador. Everyone that I've met there seems to be on the same wavelength with it.
Yeah, I agree about the Ecuador, but what about the more civilized world? Like, what is your opinion? Will this movement happen there? US, UK?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it already is. I mean, it started in Australia, for example, in the 70s, I think. A guy called Bill Mollison and David Holmgren. They started this design science and wrote a big, thick manual of the permaculture design manual. I can't remember, something like that.
And people are still using it?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
They were basically bringing together all ancient agricultural techniques from all around the world and putting it into a manual. Just collecting it all, and since then it's grown, and there's a research institute in Australia. I mean, they're in lots and lots of places around the world now, but Yeah, I think it already is growing rapidly. I don't really see it stopping. I think there's lots of things that are standing in its way. I mean, my main interest is the eco-building side of things, and I mean, planning permission is the biggest
issue right now.
definitely.
Okay, what about food forests? Do you believe in them? I mean, in turning the existing cities into self-sustainable, more eco?
Yeah, I mean, food forests are just forests really, but with edible plants and trees. It's an age-old technique. I mean, forests look after themselves. They regulate themselves. They fertilize their own land. They provide their own shade. They keep the water in the land. They prevent erosion. You know, the systems that have been proven by evolution for millions of years. So really, all mankind is doing there is saying, "Wow, forest works really well. Let's maybe put some edible trees in there." So yeah, I mean that's obvious as far as I can see that it works. I think in terms of urban permaculture, there's no reason why all the trees that line the sides of the roads shouldn't be edible trees, and you know, growing nuts and fruits and things. There's a movement in England called Incredible Edible, where a lot of the pensioners and old people from around the town in Todmorden started growing fruit bushes and things just on the roundabouts and the sidewalks in the centre of town.
Oh, right in the cities, right?
Yeah, right in the centre of town.
Cool.
And there's raspberry bushes right outside the police station that are free, you know. Like, there's no such thing as theft there, they're free. Yeah, I mean, urban agriculture is something that's coming along more and more with vertical gardens where you know, there's plenty of sunlight around as long as you can get the water up. There's no reason why you can't. Hanging baskets hanging off the side of skyscrapers, basically, and grow food that way. There's no reason why you don't put living roofs everywhere. Living roofs.
But what about the pollution, the air in the cities? Does it hurt the trees?
I think it's probably more the other way around. I think the trees are purifying the pollution, in my opinion.
Even the bushes with raspberry? Or you should have some particular?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we're moving away from that, though. I mean, maybe not in our lifetime. Maybe it's not that visible that, you know, we're moving away from internal combustion engines and things like that. But
okay.
Eventually, like, it's quite obviously we're moving away from burning gas locally or burning oil locally. It's moving more to power stations, which are at least centralized production of fossil fuel energy, and can at least focus that pollution somewhere that we can do something about it. I think as we move more to electric cars, which is, you know, that seems to be becoming more and more, then pollution in the center of cities should go away. Oh.
And I think it's possible to produce only the energy just from the renewable sources without using gas.
Yeah, without a doubt. I don't know, I think the whole universe is energy. We just need to find a way to capture it. The easiest way so far has been to burn and generate electricity through movement from tiny little explosions hundreds of times a minute. But you know, there's movement everywhere, really. There's no reason why we don't have water turbines every meter along a stream, you know, or on drain pipes or on sewage systems. You know, wherever there's movement, there's energy. There's also piezoelectric, where you have sidewalks that generate electricity just by people walking them. It's just that we don't have that technology yet.
Okay.
We're getting there.
And I have one final question. So, what is your thinking? Our world is moving in right direction or wrong right now?
Yeah, 100% sure it's moving in the right direction. It's just not as fast as we'd like it to be, because we're living on a completely different timescale to the one that whatever movement this is taking is moving on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this interview.